Hello, this is Matt, and welcome to today's edition of English Bites. The headline, or actually it's a podcast, so the podcast title that I wanted to draw your attention to today is this one, The Long-Term Consequences of the Supply Chain Crisis. And this is another part of the Nedgel series. Nedgel is a friend of mine and a reader of this newsletter, so hi Nedgel. And Nedgel this week has asked, what are the differences between words that are very similar? And so Nedgel asks, what are the differences between result and consequence? And first of all, the difference between result and consequence, it's not a big difference. You often see them used interchangeably. And if you use one when you should be using the other, no one's going to die. No one's going to think you're stupid. So it's not catastrophic. It's not a big problem. But there is a small difference between result and consequence. Result is simpler and more one-dimensional, and it is also a little bit more morally neutral. So in terms of simpler, if you use the word result, you're saying that I took one action and I got one outcome. One thing resulted, pardon the pun, one thing resulted. And so you're saying that I did one thing and I got one thing in the end. So it's a fairly simple process, and you're also saying that it's morally neutral. You're not saying whether the outcome was good or bad or right or wrong. You're not saying anything about that. It's a little bit more morally neutral. The word consequence is a little more, the result or the outcome is a little more complicated. Maybe two or three or four things happen. You do one thing and two or three or four things happen, or you do one thing and two things happen and one of them causes three other things to happen. So it's a little bit more of a complicated web of things that happen after your initial action. That's one aspect of consequence. Another aspect of consequence is that there's a little bit more moral judgment involved. Maybe it's a positive moral judgment, maybe it's a negative moral judgment, but there's some moral judgment of some sort being had. It's not necessarily a big, deep moral judgment. It might be a shallow, casual moral judgment, but it's still a moral judgment of some sort.